Sometimes, the craziest things happen when you least expect it, especially when you're just hanging out with your friends and family. No one thinks bad things are going to happen when everyone is supposedly safe. But what does it really mean to be safe? And can anyone ever fully be safe, even when doing mundane things like hanging out at home? To paraphrase a song from my true crime playlist, sometimes things just happen, and we can see no reason, because there are no reason. What reason do you need to die? 5 boys thought they were perfectly safe hanging out at home in the afternoon of Sunday, April 3rd, 2022, until a chance event shattered that illusion and changed the 5 boys' lives forever. Christopher Broad, 16, and Colton Whitler, 17, live with their 17-year-old friend, Joshua Vining, and his family in their trailer in Bellevue, a small town on the outskirts of Ocala, Florida. Hanging out on a typical Sunday, eventually they run low on smokes, so Christopher and Joshua went to go buy cigarettes. Given their ages, it's unclear how they expected to do this, but when they came back they were accompanied by Evan Vole, 18, and another young guy named Dylan, so it's entirely possible Evan bought the cigarettes. But regardless of all that, they returned to the trailer where they continue to hang out. That is, until tragedy strikes.
I saw a teenage boy come out of the house, and he was all hysterical. Couldn't understand what he was screaming.
Please, bro, I love you, bro. You gotta stay with me, bro.
And it's at this moment that we find Christopher lying in a slowly growing pool of his own blood with a gunshot wound to his chest. Colton tells the 911 operator, "My house just got shot up. My friend got shot in the chest." The operator asks him how many suspects he thought were involved. Colton repeatedly tells the operator that he's not sure because the bullets came into the trailer from outside. But why would someone want to shoot up this family's trailer?
They're coming towards you, sir.
Hurry, tell them to hurry, please. Bro, please.
Sir, I'm getting them out to you.
Joshua is doing CPR on Christopher when the police arrive. Christopher is immediately rushed to HCA Ocala, Florida Hospital for emergency trauma care, and Josh is too distraught to speak with the police at the moment, so he is taken by the Marion County Fire and Rescue to HCA Ocala, Florida Hospital for further evaluation. Meanwhile, the police interview Colton. Colton tells the police that Christopher had put on a bulletproof vest and asked someone to shoot him. Evan had agreed to do this. First, Evan takes just 1 shot. Then, a few seconds later, he fired off 3 rounds at the younger boy, who toppled over almost immediately after Evan fired the last shot. Colton says he rushed to Christopher and took off the vest. He realizes one of the bullets must have missed the vest or somehow went through it and caught Christopher in the chest. And at this point, Evan and Dylan flee the trailer. After hearing this, Sergeant Michael C. Miley puts out an APB for Evan and Dylan. Meanwhile, around 8:20 p.m., Christopher dies at the hospital. At this point, Sergeant Miley goes to HCA Ocala to interview the other witness, Joshua Vining. Just before 10 p.m., Miley is able to speak with Joshua. Joshua tells him that earlier in the day, he, Christopher, and Colton went to Dunkin' Donuts. Once they returned to the trailer, Christopher said he was going to take a shower. All of a sudden, the sound of bullets came from nowhere, and one of them hit Christopher. Almost instantly, Joshua grabs his gun, rushes outside, and shoots off a few rounds at a car speeding away. But after a little prodding, Joshua also mentions that Christopher was wearing a ballistics vest, and had mentioned that he was bulletproof. Miley asks Joshua about his gun, and the boy tells him the gun belongs to his father, but is left accessible on the premises for protection. After finishing up with Joshua, the officer speaks with Deputy Weaver, who is accompanying Joshua at the hospital. Deputy Weaver informs Miley that Joshua previously implicated 2 other guys, Evan and Dylan. And at this point, Miley knows he needs to talk to them. Luckily, by this time, Marion County Sheriff deputies have detained Evan and taken him to the Bellevue Police Department for questioning. Sergeant Miley is able to contact Dylan's mother on the phone and convinces her to bring her son to the police station for questioning. At this point, the evidence seems to show that Dylan is probably another witness, and one that can corroborate the other boys' stories. So Sergeant Miley starts with him. Dylan tells Miley that he and Evan were indeed at Joshua Vining's trailer with the other boys. Eventually, Miley just asks him point blank, "Who shot Christopher?" Dylan says, "I think it was Josh." Dylan then tells the officer clearly that he knows Evan did not shoot Christopher. But before leaving, Dylan reiterates that ultimately he did not see and does not know who killed Christopher. With all this information in tow, Miley sits down with his main suspect, Evan. After reading him his Miranda rights, Evan speaks freely. He was at the Vining residence with Dylan earlier that day. And while he was there, Joshua was showing everyone a tan Springfield Armory XDM 9mm handgun and a bulletproof vest. He was clearly very excited about the gun, a not uncommon reaction when boys are up to no good with dangerous things. Joshua then asked Evan, "Have you ever seen someone get shot with a bulletproof vest on?" Once Evan realizes the boys are serious, Joshua can see that he has become worried. Joshua pacifies this worry by telling him they'd done it before and nothing happened. Upon hearing this, most will see the red flag of the possibility of danger anytime someone utters such an ironic phrase. Saying something like that is almost like tempting fate. But young men often haven't seen the way that it only takes once, that just one tiny mistake can change everything in your life. At this point, Evan tells Miley that Joshua put on the vest and did that shit. In other words, Christopher shot Joshua in the chest while he was wearing the vest, and Joshua was not seriously injured by the bullet. After some celebratory whooping and swagger, Joshua and Christopher traded places. One of the boys yells, "2 times!" Another says, no, 1 time. Christopher looks at Joshua and says, "Just once." Joshua shot Christopher once in the chest. The bulletproof vest stops the bullet. Nothing happens. Then there's a moment of silence while everyone looks at Christopher, waiting for his next move. He nods, and Joshua shoots him 4 more times. Someone screams, "Oh my God!" Christopher's head turns away from Joshua, and he falls to the ground. Now at this point, Miley has at least 3 versions of what happened, and in 2 of the stories, Evan is the suspect. But luckily for Evan, he recorded the incidents on Snapchat, and though he had deleted the video of the shooting, the police were able to recover it. Watching the video, it's clear as day that Joshua is the shooter.
I'm sure these kids never envisioned that a death was going to occur as a result of their behavior.
Tragic accident with teenagers. You know, you get 4 or 5 teenagers together, and I don't know the circumstances, but they were playing around. And it was just a tragic accident. I hope, I think that's what it was.
A few days later, the boys are arrested and charged as adults. Joshua for aggravated manslaughter of a child with a firearm, and Colton for knowingly misleading a police investigation. Evan and Dylan were not charged with anything. Joshua and Colton, on the other hand, posted bond within a few days and were released. A few weeks later, however, they decided to take another series of stupid chances. Seems like they were making a point to someone by shooting in the air, but unfortunately the only point they made was how foolish they actually are.
Oh, they shot in the air trying to make us whatever statement, and they just took off.
Luckily, no one was injured in this stupid drive-by shooting stunt.
310, I just heard sounds like rifles being shot just south of my location, maybe towards North Roads.
However, the boys were arrested again, along with Joshua's older brother, Jarrett Vining Jr., 19. They were incredibly careless to do this drive-by shooting, and with how they tried to pull it off, because there was clearly a rifle in the driver's seat when they were pulled over, and we can see that there's clearly an issue with responsible gun usage in that household. Though one could easily imagine that there are probably more issues in the household than that, because the belief that guns are toys is a pretty high bar for negligence.
Got you. Why are you guys flying out of there? We weren't flying. We were definitely hauling out of that road. No, sir. It's funny, I heard some gunshots coming from there. No? You guys didn't hear any gunshots or anything? No. 310, I got a rifle in the driver's seat. Step out of the vehicle. Step out of the vehicle. I'm not going to ask you one more time. Step out of the car. Hands behind your back.
Anyone who's been trained how to use a gun knows that the first rule of gun safety is don't point a gun at anything you don't want to shoot.
310, 1 to 10.
And the second rule is never put your finger on the trigger unless you intend to harm or kill the thing you're pointing at. Seems like they missed that lesson or just disregarded it, especially considering how the first incident, killing a friend, should have taught a sensible person a huge lesson about respect for guns, or at least not blatantly trying to get arrested while out on bond by doing stupid shit like a drive-by shooting.
There's no reason for any of these juveniles to have a firearm, let alone drive by and shoot at a house. That's not the way to solve any issue.
I think widely across the law enforcement community, that's probably echoed time and time again. They were charged with manslaughter, but had they been held without bond, then obviously this may not have happened.
If they weren't given a bond, this wouldn't have happened. But the determination, a judge is the only one who can change that.
So while it's true, sometimes the craziest things happen. Many of those things can actually be prevented. And truth be told, the craziness is often really only experienced by people outside who witness it or are harmed by it. It only takes one time is probably one of the best pieces of advice a boy can receive. And sadly, sometimes boys being boys do some stupid shit and hurt or kill each other or themselves without meaning to, because it only takes one time. But I'm curious what you think. Do the parents hold any blame? Especially Joshua and Jarrett's father. What is his role in all of this?
I asked the state attorney's office if Vining and Whitler's parents could face any charges in this. They told me they looked into the possibility of charging Vining's father, John, after the April 3rd homicide, but say there wasn't enough evidence there. John hung up today when I tried to call. Now, I did talk to Whitler's dad today over the phone. When I asked him about the latest incident, he told me they did not raise him to do that. He told me his son was only a witness in the other shooting.
Who's ultimately responsible here? Are the boys a product of their environment? Or are they negligent, lying fools who are willing to turn in an innocent friend for their mistakes? Or maybe something else entirely? I recommend you watch this one next. It's about an old man who mercilessly shoots a pregnant woman who is robbing him. Or if you need some background music for work, check out my Real True Crime music playlist. The playlist is huge and filled with songs based on real true crimes. If you really liked this video, please do me a favor and like and subscribe and share with a friend. I'm so close to 1,000 subscribers, but regardless, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching this video. And I hope to see you again really soon, because there's always something lurking underneath the floorboards somewhere.